Hi, I'm Rick with Tanner Systems. This video is going to cover a lot of information on Tanner Systems compact dispensers. We also call them a de-icer. In essence, the de-icer introduces our de-icant or our antifreeze to your system, to your compressed air system, because we are going to prevent the moisture in your compressed air system from freezing. What are we going to talk about in this video? The different sizes and models we have available, which one may be best for your application. We're going to talk about how they work, where to install them, a few tips on how to install them, and adjusting them because they can introduce a variable rate of fluid based on what your specific environment requires. So let's get started. Obviously, you can tell by seeing my friends here, we have 5 compact dispensers. Our little workhorse that we just is kind of used in so many different places I can't even cover all of them, is our T90. 1 quart reservoir, 3/4 inch inlet outlet. I just have it on a stand here. It's got a drain on the bottom should you need to take any of the fluid out. If you need to bush it down, 3/8, ½ inch, even as far as 1/4 inch, definitely can be done. We can handle anything up to 200 psi, and whatever air you think you can move through this T90, it can handle it. Anything bigger than 3/4 inch, we jump up to our 1-inch dispensers. We have a T83 and a T85. Same exact working mechanism or head of the unit. We just have a ½ gallon reservoir or a 2-gallon reservoir. And then 1.5 inch, 1 3/4, 2-inch size air pipelines, we're going to operate with the T87 or the T89. Again, same heads, just different size reservoirs. 2-gallon reservoir, 5-gallon reservoir. The reservoirs on these two are exactly the same, 2 gallons. All of our dispensers are designed to work with the 2 Tanner fluids, TANNERGAS and No-Tox 2. They are ported, if you want to say, to introduce those 2 antifreezes in metered amounts based on what you think you might need into your airstream to prevent your moisture from freezing. If you need more information on the 2 fluids, or if you need some help deciding which one is going to be best for you, take a look at the website, tannersystems.com, or give us a call. The compact dispensers are mechanisms to introduce liquid to your airstream. That's how we get your moisture to no longer freeze. We are not a dryer company, if you want to say. We do not take the moisture out of your system. We just chemically change the freeze point of your moisture so that it no longer freezes. The moisture is still going to be there. You're either going to push it out your tool, push it out your actuator, your valve, control mechanism, or eventually all these moisture molecules are going to condense, turn back into a liquid, and you're going to drain them out the bottom of a pipe or a spitter somewhere. So that's what these do. Which one is best for you? Well, the main factor really is going to be pipe size and how big of a tank do you want, because the bigger the tank, the more time you have between service intervals. And then of course the room that you have within your system. Sometimes we have service trucks, there's not a lot of room in there, whether we've got hanging it on a trailer of a transportation vehicle or a work haul truck, or there's not a lot of room, you're limited as to what dispenser is going to work for you. But really it's the pipe size that's going to dictate which one you're going to use in your system. How do we work? We, like we said, take your compressed air, we run it through the compact dispenser. Inside of the throat, if you want to say, the inlet side of the dispenser, we have a flow guide, just a little rubber, if you want to call it a restrictor plate in there that slows down just enough air to shove it into, there's a port on the side of this. That pressurizes this tank. By pressurizing the tank, we help pull the fluid up through the siphon tube, eventually goes through the drip tube, which is underneath the sight dome. That allows us to visually see how much fluid we are consuming. The moving air hits these droplets of antifreeze, breaks them into small molecules, our antifreeze bonds to your moisture molecule. We've chemically changed that freeze point to at least -40, if not -70, depending on which fluid you're using. And now your freeze up issues have been solved. That's really how they work. Where do we install them? Ideally, obviously we need to be after your compressor. I want to be after your receiver and after your dryer, because those two mechanisms are going to, in essence, work against us. A dryer is going to pull your moisture out of the system, but we just talked about, we also are introducing my antifreeze. So if you go downstream and pull the moisture out, you're also removing my antifreeze. I want to be after the dryer. Same thing with receiver if possible. We know that receivers are also cooling mechanisms. When air cools, the moisture falls out and you're going to drain it out. Same thing's happening there. You're taking out our antifreeze along with that moisture. So if I can be after the receiver, great. I know that a lot of times you need to use filters, regulators, lubricators. If possible, I'd like to be after, but it isn't always ideal. And we can work with that. And then of course at the end of the line is the Tanner dispenser. We want to be as close to the area that's causing you problems as we can. That's just going to make the system work that much better. How do we install them? They obviously are plumbed in line to your main airstream. All of them should be supported with some type of bracket or support mechanism or a shelf. The T90 does pretty well hanging on its own. A lot of people just hang it off the back of maybe their 185 or plumbing it in line. It's a small weight, it only weighs 7 pounds. You put a quart of fluid in here, we're still under 10 pounds. Not a big deal. Some of these other ones maybe are a little too heavy for just hanging on by themselves, so we recommend adding a little support there. You are going to need to also install on all of them except the T90, and we provide this. A drain valve that goes in the drain port, which allows you to check to see what crud, if you want to say, has collected in the bottom of your tank. And we also, for the 3 larger dispensers, we provide what we call a valve pack. That goes in the 1-inch coupler here. You're going to install this because that's going to help you with filling the unit, and we'll talk about that in just a second. I recommend, just as something we've run across, put a union on either side, so if you do need to service this, it's a whole lot easier to pull it out, make any maintenance changes to it if you need to, and easily get it back in line. And some guys have even used a bypass, because that allows them, in, if you want to say, non-seasonal time of year, to run the air around the dispenser and not run your air through the dispenser, even though you're not drawing fluid. If at all possible, while you're doing your install, we have found that if there are 90s immediately connected to the dispenser or within a few inches, it does not allow the dispenser to work properly. We either take too much fluid or it doesn't allow any fluid to be consumed. So if you can give yourself a good 12 to 18 inches of straight run before you get to the elbows, everything is going to work that much better. Just a little tip that we found over the 90 plus years we've been doing this. That's a quick install. How do we, now that we have it installed, adjust our flow? Go to your, obviously your compressor. I want full volume, what your compressor can create. I want to go downstream of the dispenser and then open it up so I can get max flow to go through the dispenser. Once we get max flow going through the dispenser, next to the clear sight dome on all of these is what we call an adjusting screw. It's a needle valve, but it looks like a little straight slotted screw up here. This needle valve, obviously, if we go all the way down with it, that's going to close the air loop in here. Air will pass through, but it does not have the ability to draw fluid. If we come up from the bottom, or if we open this up, we will now start to see fluid dripping through this drip tube. And the further up we come, the faster those drip rates are going to appear. How many do you need? Great question. Let's start with these numbers, and then after you run your system for a while, you're going to know whether you should adjust up or down. But if we're under 200 CFM in your system, I would start with 1 drop of fluid about every 4 seconds. If you're in that 300-400 range CFM, then 1 drop every 3 seconds. you get up to the 500 to 700 CFM, let's do a drop of fluid every 2 seconds. And if we're over 800 CFM, let's do maybe a drop of fluid every second. This is all taking place while you have max air running through your dispenser. Close your opening that we had downstream. Now, if your system only runs at 35 to 40%, because you're not needing that much air, the compact dispenser will self-regulate. We're not going to see the one drop every 4 seconds. We may only see a drop every 6 to 8 seconds. But if you get back to full flow, the dispenser is already now set to be able to handle that much air. That's how we set the system up, or use our adjusting screw. You can also use your adjusting screw at the end of the season. I have 3/4 of a tank. I don't want to take the fluid out. Just close the needle valve all the way down. You still have air passing through, but because we've closed the internal air loop, we're not drawing any fluid anymore. When it gets back to cold season, we want to, in essence, crank this thing back up again. All we need to do is bring this up from the bottom, that turn and a half, back to where we think our drip rate needs to be, and you're going to start drawing fluid again immediately. How do we fill the dispensers? Not sure if I covered that. So obviously when you're doing your first install, there's no air passing through them. You can fill them up anytime. But you can fill any of the 5 dispensers while air is passing through them. We do not need to shut down our air system to fill them up. The large dispensers, a lot easier. Again, we still have the valve pack that you're going to have installed on here. While air is passing through your system, we are going to remove what we call the fill plug or the bleed plug. On this one, it's the black plastic one. On these two, it's the brass. This fill plug, when it is in its seated position, is pushing down and opening a Schrader valve. That Schrader valve is what allows your passing air to get into the tank, to pressurize this tank ever so slightly, which pushes the fluid up the siphon tube, which goes almost all the way down to the bottom. If we open this bleed plug, we close the Schrader valve and we allow the air to escape around these threads, depressurizing the tank. So take the bleed plug off, crack your gate valve all the way open, then you can pour your fluid through the gate valve, which will then fill your tank up to the proper level here, as you can see by your sight glass. Close the gate valve, replace your fill plug, otherwise known as a bleed plug, and by doing so, you will repressurize the bowl and you should immediately start drawing fluid again. That's the 3 larger dispensers. The T90 and the T83 both need to be filled through the fill plug. Again, release the pressure, fill through this port, replace your fill plug / bleed plug. By doing so, the Schrader valve opens, we repressurize the bowl, we start drawing fluid. So that is how we are pressurizing and filling our systems under pressure. I covered a lot here in a real short period of time. If there's any other questions that you have that I didn't cover here, there may be answers on the website, tannersystems.com, or give us a call at Tanner Systems, and we'd be happy to talk with you and walk through any of the questions you might have. Thanks again for your time. I really appreciate it, and have a great day.